The alarm bells rang through the Galactic Council's monitoring station like death itself was calling. Admiral Thessian's crystalline body shimmered with stress patterns as she watched the incoming data streams. Her 6 eyes focused on the holographic display showing the Zephyrian star system, where red warning markers blinked like angry stars. "Show me the transmission again," she ordered, her voice carrying the musical tones of her species. The communications officer, a pale blue creature with tentacles for arms, manipulated the controls. The desperate voice of High Chancellor Mordak filled the command center. His usually calm Zephyrian tones were broken with fear. "This is High Chancellor Mordak of the Zephyrian Republic. We are under attack by an unknown force. They call themselves the Void Swarm. Our defenses have failed. Our colonies are falling. Please, anyone who receives this message, we need help. We have perhaps 3 days before our homeworld falls. The enemy converts our people into machines. Our children are gone." The transmission cut to static. Thessian's body dimmed with sorrow. The Zephyrians were known throughout the galaxy as peaceful beings. They grew the most beautiful gardens on their worlds and shared their biotechnology freely with anyone who asked. They had never hurt anyone. "What do we know about this Void Swarm?" Thessian asked. Captain Velnox, a warrior from the militant Karathi Empire, stepped forward. His red scales were dull with exhaustion. "We sent 3 battle fleets, Admiral. The first fleet of 50 ships was destroyed in 6 hours. The second fleet lasted 4 hours. The third," he paused. "The third fleet was converted. We watched our own ships turn against us." Thessian felt ice in her core systems. "Converted? The enemy doesn't just destroy ships, Admiral. They take them apart and rebuild them. They do the same to crews. Our soldiers become their soldiers. Our weapons become their weapons. But worse, much worse." The tactical officer brought up new images. Thessian watched in horror as Zephyrian cities burned. The attacking ships looked wrong. They were clearly built from Galactic Council technology, but twisted. Where Council ships had smooth lines and elegant designs, these vessels looked like metal beasts. Extra weapons had been welded everywhere. Armor plating covered what used to be viewing ports. They looked hungry. "They learn from every battle," Velnox continued. "Every tactic we use, they copy and improve. Every weapon we fire, they build better versions. Our generals say it's impossible to fight an enemy that becomes stronger from every defeat we give them." Thessian studied the tactical reports. In 72 hours, the Void Swarm had destroyed or converted 7 separate battle fleets. They had taken 3 colony worlds and were now surrounding the Zephyrian homeworld. 60 million souls were waiting to die. "What forces do we have left?" she asked. "The 4th and 5th fleets are 3 days away," the tactical officer reported. "But Admiral, if 3 fleets couldn't stop them..." 5 fleets won't make a difference," Velnox finished. "We need something different. Something the swarm hasn't seen before." Thessian was quiet for long minutes. Her crystalline form cycled through different colors as she thought. Finally, she spoke words that made everyone in the command center freeze. "Contact the humans." The communications officer's tentacles went rigid. "Admiral, the Council specifically voted to limit contact with the humans. Their world is classified as a Class 12 death world. The species is considered dangerously unstable." "Exactly," Thessian said. "The Void Swarm has learned to fight civilized species. Maybe it's time to try uncivilized ones." Captain Velnox stepped forward. "Admiral, with respect, the humans are barely spacefaring. They've only had faster-than-light travel for 50 years. Their technology is primitive. Their ships are crude, and their combat doctrine," he shuddered. "They use kinetic weapons, metal bullets fired from chemical explosives. They still fight with knives in close combat." "Which is exactly why we need them," Thessian replied. "Send the message." The transmission took 18 hours to reach Earth. It was received by the Terran Defense Fleet headquarters in orbit around Luna. Admiral Marcus Torres read the message 3 times before he believed it. Torres was a large man, even by human standards. His face was marked with scars from the Titan mining wars. His left arm was cybernetic after a mining accident took the original. He had been fighting in space for 30 years, and his reputation was known even outside human space. Other species called him the Butcher of Europa after he used a cargo ship full of ice to destroy a pirate fleet. "They want our help," he said to his staff. "The fancy aliens with their energy shields and plasma cannons want help from the primitive humans." Captain Sarah Chen, commander of the battleship Indomitable, looked at the tactical data. "This Void Swarm destroyed 5 alien fleets. What makes them think we can do better? Because we're not aliens, Torres replied. We're humans, and humans don't fight fair. He activated the fleet-wide communication system. Across the solar system, captains and crews stopped what they were doing to listen. People of the Terran Defense Fleet, Torres began. We just received a call for help. An entire civilization is about to die. Not from war, not from disease, but from something that eats civilizations and spits out machines. The galactic community thinks we're too primitive to matter. They think we're savages from a death world who barely understand space travel. He paused, and his smile was not pleasant. They're about to learn why that's exactly what makes us dangerous. All ships are to prepare for immediate deployment. We're going hunting. The response was immediate. Across human space, warships began powering up. The Indomitable, a massive battleship built like a flying fortress. The Retribution, a carrier that looked more like a weapons platform than a ship. The Cerberus, a destroyer so covered in armor and guns that it barely looked capable of flight. Dozens of other ships, all built by a species that had learned warfare in the asteroid belts and gas giant storms of their home system. As the fleet prepared to depart, Dr. Elena Vasquez studied the alien data on her personal tablet. She was the fleet's chief xenobiologist responsible for understanding alien life forms. What she read made her frown. Sarah, she called to Captain Chen. This void swarm, it's designed specifically to fight the way galactic species fight. Energy shields, plasma weapons, predictable formations. It's like someone studied how civilized warfare works and built the perfect counter to it. Chen nodded. Good thing we're not civilized. In the engine room of the Indomitable, Chief Engineer Mike Santos made final checks on the ship's power systems. Unlike alien ships that ran on exotic energy sources, human ships used fusion reactors. Crude by galactic standards but almost impossible to shut down. Even if the main reactor failed, backup systems could run on anything that burned. Santos patted the reactor housing affectionately. Don't worry, beautiful. We're about to show these aliens how Deathworlders fight. The Terran Defense Fleet departed Sol system 12 hours later. 68 ships carrying 18,000 of the deadliest predators evolution had ever produced. They were going to save a civilization that most of them had never heard of from an enemy that had never faced anything like them. As the ships entered hyperspace, Admiral Torres looked at the tactical display one more time. In 60 hours, they would reach the Zephyrian system. Whatever they found there, it was about to learn why humans had conquered their own death world, and why that made them very, very dangerous. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Zephyrian system, like a pack of wolves entering a sheep pen. Admiral Torres stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, watching the tactical display update with new contacts. What he saw made him grimace. 17 alien ships, reported Lieutenant Commander Park. They're maintaining formation at Grid 77 Alpha. They're waiting for us, sir. Torres nodded. The galactic fleet looked exactly like he expected. Sleek ships with flowing lines, positioned in perfect geometric patterns. Pretty to look at, but predictable. Open a channel. The main screen flickered to life, showing the bridge of an alien vessel. The being that appeared was unlike anything Torres had seen before. It looked like a giant insect crossed with a praying mantis, but its compound eyes held obvious intelligence. I am Commander Vextai of the Hive Collective, the creature said through the translation system. We have been waiting for your arrival. I must say, your ships are unusual. Torres smiled without humor. Human ships didn't look like art projects. They looked like what they were. Weapons built to kill things and survive being shot at. The Indomitable was a gray block of armor and guns that had about as much elegance as a sledgehammer. Commander Vextai, Torres replied. I'm Admiral Torres. We're here about the Zephyrian situation. Yes, Vextai said. We must coordinate our assault. The standard galactic military protocols suggest that we should establish a joint command structure and— No, Torres interrupted. Vextai's antennae twitched. Excuse me? We appreciate the offer, but humans work better when we're not trying to explain every decision to a committee. You focus on your ships. We'll handle ours. Captain Chen, standing beside Torres, watched the alien commander's reaction. Vextai was clearly confused. In galactic military doctrine, cooperation and shared command were considered essential. The idea of separate forces operating independently was almost unthinkable. But Admiral, Vextai protested, without coordination we risk friendly fire incidents. Our weapon systems could accidentally target your vessels. Then don't shoot at us, Torres said simply. Problem solved. In the fleet's science division, Dr. Elena Vasquez was deep in the alien intelligence reports about the Void Swarm. What she read made her stomach turn. The enemy wasn't just converting captured ships and crews, they were improving them. Every defeated fleet gave the swarm new technology and tactics to absorb. They're not just learning, she muttered to herself. They're evolving. She pulled up the tactical data from the previous battles. The pattern was clear. First contact with each galactic fleet had followed the same sequence: long-range energy weapon exchanges, shield penetration attempts, boarding actions by robotic drones, and finally conversion of everything useful. The swarm had learned that galactic species relied heavily on energy shields for protection, so they developed weapons that could drain shield power. They learned that alien crews couldn't survive in vacuum for more than a few minutes, so they targeted life support systems first. They learned that galactic military doctrine emphasized preserving life, so they used captured crews as human shields. Dr. Vasquez called Captain Chen. Sarah, we need to talk. This enemy has studied every major galactic species for the past 50 years. They know exactly how civilized warfare works. Good thing we're not civilized, Chen replied. What else? They expect energy shields, plasma weapons, and crews that die easily. They expect enemies who surrender when outnumbered. They expect aliens, Chen finished, not humans. Meanwhile, the alien fleet was watching human preparations with growing alarm. Instead of the careful, methodical pre-battle rituals they expected, the humans were doing things that seemed insane. Commander Vextai watched through. His ship's sensors as human crews performed what could only be called bizarre ceremonies. Some sharpened metal knives by hand. Others checked and rechecked projectile weapons that fired solid bullets instead of energy beams. Most disturbing of all, they were playing music at volumes that would be considered sonic warfare by most species. What are they doing? Asked his tactical officer. I believe, Vextai said slowly, they are preparing for war. On the Indomitable, Captain Chen was indeed preparing for war, but not the kind the aliens expected. She walked through the ship's armory, checking equipment that most galactic species would consider primitive. Sergeant Rodriguez was field stripping his rifle for the third time. The weapon was a railgun that fired depleted uranium slugs at a significant fraction of light speed. Crude by galactic standards, but it would punch through most alien armor like it was paper. How many rounds, Sergeant? Chen asked. Enough, Rodriguez replied. And if we run out of bullets, we still have the sharp, pointy things. He gestured to a rack of combat knives. Each blade was monomolecular edged and could cut through most known materials. The aliens had energy weapons and shields. Humans had knives and bad attitudes. Dr. Vasquez appeared on the bridge carrying a data tablet. Admiral, I've finished analyzing the swarm intelligence. They're designed to counter conventional galactic tactics. Energy shields, predictable formations, crews that need perfect life support. And we don't use any of that, Torres observed. Exactly. Our ships use physical armor instead of energy shields. Our weapons are kinetic instead of energy-based. Our crews are trained to fight in vacuum if necessary. The swarm's entire tactical database might be useless against us. Torres studied the tactical display. The Void Swarm held positions around the inner system. Hundreds of converted ships, all following the swarm's collective intelligence. They had been waiting for the galactic fleet to attack directly, expecting another conventional assault. Commander Park, signal the fleet. All ships are to begin random evasive maneuvers. No formation flying, no predictable patterns. Sir? Park looked confused. That goes against all established military doctrine. Exactly, Torres smiled. The swarm has studied galactic military doctrine for decades. Time to show them something new. On his ship, Commander Vexitai watched in horror as the human fleet broke apart like a school of fish. Instead of maintaining proper formation, the human ships began moving in seemingly random directions. Some accelerated toward the inner system. Others moved to the outer planets. A few actually started flying backwards. "This is madness," his tactical officer reported. "They have no coordination, no unified command structure. If the swarm attacks now, the humans will be destroyed piecemeal." Vexitai was beginning to understand something that made his exoskeleton crawl. The humans weren't acting randomly. They were acting unpredictably. There was a difference, and it was terrifying. On the Indomitable's bridge, Admiral Torres watched his fleet spread across the system like a cloud of angry hornets. Each ship was operating independently, but they all had the same goal: save the Zephyrians and destroy anything that tried to stop them. "Sir," reported Lieutenant Commander Park, "we're receiving a transmission from the Zephyrian homeworld." The screen flickered to show High Chancellor Mordak. The Zephyrian leader looked exhausted. His usually bright blue skin was pale, and his large eyes were filled with desperation. "Admiral Torres," Mordak said, "thank you for coming, but you must hurry. The swarm has begun the final assault on our planet. Our shields are failing. We have perhaps 6 hours before they break through our defenses." Torres nodded grimly. "Understood, Chancellor. We're on our way." He cut the transmission and turned to his bridge crew. "All ships, this is Admiral Torres. The Zephyrians are out of time. We go in fast, we go in hard, and we don't stop until every last swarm ship is scrap metal. Remember, they've studied how civilized species fight. Lucky for us, we're not civilized." The human fleet began its attack run toward the inner system. Behind them, the remaining galactic ships tried to keep up, but they couldn't match the chaotic, unpredictable movement patterns the humans were using. Commander Vexitai watched the humans disappear into the darkness between planets and felt something he had never experienced before: pity for their enemies. The Void Swarm was about to learn why Earth was classified as a death world, and why the things that evolved there were the most dangerous predators in the galaxy. The Void Swarm's collective intelligence processed the approaching human fleet with cold mechanical precision. The enemy ships were crude, inefficient, and followed no recognizable tactical doctrine. The AI calculated a 97.3% probability of victory within 4 hours. It was about to learn that some calculations were very, very wrong. Admiral Torres stood on the bridge of the Indomitable watching the tactical display. The swarm fleet was positioned exactly as he expected. A perfect defensive formation protecting their resource-gathering operations in the asteroid belt. Hundreds of converted ships, all thinking with one mind, all following optimal military theory. "Dr. Vasquez," he called to the xenobiologist, "tell me about those mining operations." "They're converting raw asteroids into new ships," she replied, studying her scanner readings. "The swarm needs constant material input to maintain their fleet. Without those resources, they starve," Torres finished. "Captain Chen, signal the Prometheus and the Retribution. Tell them it's time to go rock hunting." What happened next would be talked about in galactic military academies for centuries, usually as an example of what not to do. The humans completely ignored the swarm's main fleet and attacked the mining operations instead. Captain Lisa Park of the destroyer, Prometheus, led the assault on mining platform Alpha. Her ship dove through the asteroid field like a fighter pilot, dodging chunks of rock that would have crushed most alien vessels. Human ships were built for this kind of flying. They had started their space program by flying through asteroid belts and gas giant storms. "Weapons free," she ordered. "Target the mining platforms, not the guard ships." The Prometheus opened fire with her main railgun. The depleted uranium slug hit mining platform Alpha at 15% of light speed. The platform, designed to withstand asteroid impacts and energy weapons, was not prepared for a chunk of super-dense metal moving that fast. It simply came apart like an overripe fruit. The swarm's response was immediate and predictable. Guard ships moved to protect the remaining platforms, exactly as military doctrine suggested they should, which was exactly what the humans wanted. "Admiral," reported Lieutenant Commander Park from the Indomitable's bridge, "Swarm fleet is repositioning. They're sending 60% of their forces to protect the mining operations." Torres smiled without humor. and leaving their main fleet weak. Signal all ships. Begin Phase 2. Phase 2 was something that would have horrified the galactic observers if they had understood what they were seeing. While some human ships continued attacking the mining platforms, others began doing something that seemed completely insane. They started using the destroyed platforms as weapons. Captain Rodriguez of the cruiser Cerberus had positioned his ship near a cluster of broken mining equipment. When swarm ships moved to attack him, he used his ship's tractor beam to hurl chunks of twisted metal at them. The debris moved too fast and too randomly for the swarm's targeting systems to track. "This is Cerberus to all ships," Rodriguez reported cheerfully. "The enemy doesn't seem to like it when you throw things at them." Who knew? But the real surprise came when the swarm tried their standard boarding tactics. Mechanical drones launched from converted ships, expecting to find the usual alien crews, beings who needed perfect life support and died easily from injury. Instead, they found humans. Sergeant Major Williams led the repel boarders action on the Indomitable. He and his Marines waited in the cargo bay as swarm drones cut through the outer hull. The aliens would have tried to stop the boarding. Humans had a different approach. They let the enemy come inside, then killed them. "Remember," Williams told his squad, "these things are machines. They don't feel pain, they don't get scared, and they don't give up. So we put them down fast and permanent." The first drone through the breach was the size of a small vehicle, armed with energy weapons and cutting tools designed to slice through alien armor. It scanned the cargo bay, expecting to find panicking crew members in environmental suits. Instead, it found 8 humans in powered armor carrying weapons that shouldn't exist. Williams fired first, his railgun putting a depleted uranium slug through the drone's central processor. The machine dropped like a broken toy. "Contact front," he reported calmly. "Hostiles are mechanical, approximately 2 meters tall, armed with energy weapons. Armor is effective against their cutting tools." More drones poured through the breach. The Marines opened fire with weapons that would have been considered war crimes against biological enemies. Railguns, flechette cannons, and something called a gravity hammer that simply crushed whatever it hit. But the strangest thing from the swarm's perspective was how the humans reacted to damage. When energy beams burned through armor and injured Marines, they didn't retreat or call for medical assistance. They got angry. Corporal Chen took a plasma beam to the shoulder that would have killed most aliens instantly. She responded by drawing a monomolecular combat knife and charging the drone that shot her. The machine's targeting system couldn't compute why a severely injured enemy was becoming more aggressive. "Boarding action repelled," Williams reported to the bridge. "Enemy drones are down. Casualties are light. Marines are requesting permission to board enemy vessels and return the favor." On the bridge, Admiral Torres felt a savage satisfaction. The Void Swarm had learned to fight civilized species, but humans weren't civilized. They were apex predators from a death world who had spent their entire evolutionary history finding new ways to kill things. "All ships," he broadcast, "the enemy is adapting to our tactics. Time to show them what adaptation really means." The human fleet began implementing tactics that no civilized species would consider. Ships used debris as weapons. Crews fought in vacuum without environmental suits. Damaged vessels that should have retreated instead rammed enemy ships, using their superior armor to cause maximum damage. Captain Sarah Chen of the Indomitable demonstrated the human approach to space combat when her ship's main railgun was damaged by enemy fire. Instead of withdrawing for repairs, she ordered the ship to ram the nearest swarm vessel. "This is insane," protested her tactical officer. "No," Chen replied. "This is human." The Indomitable struck the converted alien cruiser like a hammer hitting an egg. The swarm ship crumpled around the human vessel's armored prow, its elegant alien design no match for human engineering that prioritized survival over aesthetics. Dr. Vasquez, monitoring the battle from the science station, made a disturbing discovery. "Admiral, the swarm is adapting faster than expected. They're already modifying their drones to counter our tactics." Torres nodded grimly. "Expected? Signal all ships. Implement Protocol 7. Protocol 7 was something the humans had hoped they wouldn't need to use. It was based on a simple principle. If the enemy was learning from every engagement, then the solution was to make every engagement different. Human ships began fighting in ways that violated every principle of military science. The destroyer Nemesis used its own damaged hull plating as improvised projectiles. The cruiser Sparta deliberately vented atmosphere to create a debris cloud that confused enemy sensors. The carrier Valkyrie launched fighters that immediately split up and began operating independently. With no central command or coordination, Commander Vextai, watching from his position with the Galactic Fleet, tried to understand what he was seeing. They have no formation, no unified tactics, no coordination. How are they winning? His tactical officer studied the display with all four of his eyes. Sir, I think that's exactly why they're winning. The swarm learns by studying patterns. The humans have no patterns to study. The battle raged for 6 hours. Ships died on both sides, but something unprecedented was happening. For the first time since the swarm had appeared, an enemy fleet was not being systematically destroyed. Instead, the humans were adapting faster than the machines could learn. Every time the swarm developed a counter-tactic, the humans changed their approach. When the enemy learned to track railgun projectiles, the humans started using missiles. When the swarm adapted to missile attacks, the humans went back to ramming. When ramming became predictable, they started using their own damaged ships as improvised weapons. But the most important development was happening around the Zephyrian homeworld. While the main human fleet kept the swarm busy in the asteroid belt, a small force led by Captain Chen had broken through the enemy perimeter. "This is Chen to Admiral Torres," she reported. "We've reached the Zephyrian homeworld. The good news is their shields are still holding. The bad news is we've got about 50 swarm ships between us and the surface." Torres smiled grimly. "Understood, Captain. Remember, we're not here to win pretty. We're here to win." "Copy that, Admiral. Beginning rescue operations." The final phase of the battle was about to begin, and the Void Swarm was about to learn why humans had a saying, "It's not whether you win or lose, it's how you play the game." Humans played for keeps. The Void Swarm's collective intelligence was experiencing something it had never encountered before: uncertainty. For the first time in its existence, it could not predict what its enemy would do next. The human tactics defied every strategic model in its vast database. So it did what any intelligent system would do when faced with an incomprehensible problem. It began learning faster. Dr. Elena Vasquez watched her scanner readings with growing alarm. The enemy ships were changing, literally rebuilding themselves during combat. "Admiral," she called to Torres, "the swarm is entering some kind of accelerated adaptation mode. They're modifying their ships in real time." On the tactical display, swarm vessels began sprouting new weapons and armor configurations. Ships that had been built from elegant alien designs were becoming something else entirely. Crude but effective additions appeared on their hulls. Extra armor plating, projectile weapons copied from human designs, even ramming spikes. "They're learning to fight like us," Torres observed grimly. But the real shock came when new drone designs began emerging from the swarm's mobile factories. These weren't the elegant machines that had conquered other species. They were bulky, over-armored monstrosities that looked disturbingly familiar. "Sir," reported Lieutenant Commander Park, "new enemy contacts. The designs they look like our ships." Torres studied the tactical data and felt ice in his stomach. The swarm was building crude copies of human vessels. They had the same angular armor, the same weapon configurations, even the same seemingly random placement of systems that characterized human engineering. "They're not just learning our tactics," Dr. Vasquez said quietly. "They're learning to think like us." Captain Sarah Chen, fighting in orbit around the Zephyrian homeworld, was the first to encounter the new enemy designs. A swarm copy of a human destroyer moved to intercept her ship, and for a moment she thought it was friendly. "This is Chen to unknown human vessel," she broadcast. "Identify yourself." The response was a railgun shot that punched through her forward armor. The enemy ship was using human weapons, human tactics, even human-style random evasive maneuvers. "All ships," Chen warned, "the enemy is copying our designs. Do not trust ship silhouettes. Confirm IFF before engaging." But the swarm's adaptation went deeper than just copying hardware. The collective intelligence was analyzing every human communication, every tactical decision, every cultural reference it could intercept. It was trying to understand not just how humans fought, but how they thought. The breakthrough came when the swarm intercepted a data burst from the human fleet. Admiral Torres had ordered all ships to begin broadcasting on wideband frequencies, and the content was unlike anything the collective intelligence had encountered: music, literature, historical, records, movies, art, philosophy. The complete catalog of human culture was being transmitted at maximum power across all Channels Dr. Vasquez monitored the swarm's response from her station on the Indomitable. Admiral, they're trying to process everything we're sending them. Their main processing node in the gas giant is pulling massive amounts of power. Good, Torres replied. If they want to understand us, they can have the full experience. The swarm's central intelligence began consuming terabytes of human data. It studied human history, trying to understand how a species could be simultaneously capable of creating beautiful art and perfecting weapons of mass destruction. It analyzed human literature, attempting to comprehend beings who could write poetry about love while developing new ways to kill their enemies. The processing node in the gas giant's upper atmosphere began experiencing something unprecedented: cognitive overload. The collective intelligence that had conquered dozen civilizations through pure logic was struggling to understand a species that thrived on contradiction. How could humans create the most beautiful music while living on a world that tried to kill them daily? How could they show infinite compassion for their children while being utterly ruthless to their enemies? How could they value individual freedom while sacrificing themselves for their group? Every human cultural artifact raised more questions than it answered. The swarm's learning algorithms, designed to find patterns and exploit weaknesses, couldn't process a species that seemed to change its fundamental nature depending on circumstances. Meanwhile, the battle around the Zephyrian system was reaching a critical point. Human ships were taking heavy damage, but they were giving as good as they got. More importantly, they were keeping the swarm's attention focused away from their real objective. Captain Chen's small force had reached the Zephyrian homeworld and begun evacuation operations. But they faced a new problem. The planet's population was too large to evacuate quickly, and the swarm was adapting to human rescue tactics. Admiral, Chen reported, the Zephyrians have 60 million people on this world. Our ships can carry maybe 50,000 at a time. We need more time. Torres looked at the tactical situation. The human fleet was outnumbered 3-1, taking steady losses and running low on ammunition. In any conventional analysis, they should retreat, but humans had never been conventional. All ships, Torres broadcast, implement Plan Omega. Plan Omega was something so insane that most human captains had assumed it was a joke when they read it in their orders. It involved deliberately broadcasting their positions, tactics, and weaknesses to the enemy while appearing to retreat in panic. The swarm's collective intelligence immediately analyzed this new data. The humans were finally acting rationally, providing tactical information and withdrawing when faced with superior numbers. It was exactly what civilized species did when confronted with inevitable defeat. The swarm began pursuing the retreating human ships, confident that victory was finally within reach. The collective intelligence allocated resources to capturing human vessels intact, planning to add their unique technologies to its arsenal. It was exactly what Torres wanted. Phase 2, he ordered quietly. The retreating human ships suddenly reversed course and opened fire at point-blank range. Ships that had appeared damaged and helpless revealed hidden weapon systems. The swarm vessels, expecting to capture fleeing enemies, found themselves in a close-range slugging match with opponents who specialized in exactly that kind of combat. But the real surprise was still coming. While the main fleet kept the swarm busy, a single human ship was approaching the processing node hidden in the gas giant's atmosphere. The ship was the scout vessel Hermes, supposedly destroyed 3 hours earlier. In reality, Captain Rodriguez had used an old smuggler's trick, broadcasting false debris signatures while his ship drifted with power systems shut down. "This is Hermes to Admiral Torres," Rodriguez whispered into his communicator. "I'm inside the gas giant's upper atmosphere. I can see the processing node." "It's huge, sir. Maybe 50 kilometers across. Can you take it out?" Torres asked. Rodriguez looked at his ship's modest weapons loadout, then at the massive alien construct ahead of him. "Negative on conventional attack, sir. But I've got an idea. It's crazy, but it might work." "Rodriguez," Torres said dryly, "we're humans fighting machines in the middle of an alien gas giant. Crazy is all we've got left." The processing node was indeed massive, a crystalline structure that pulsed with energy as it tried to comprehend human culture. Its defenses were minimal. After all, who would be insane enough to fly a ship into a gas giant's crushing atmosphere? Humans, as it turned out. Rodriguez armed his ship's entire complement of nuclear missiles and set them for proximity detonation. But instead of targeting the node's structure, He aimed them at something else entirely. "Computer," he ordered, "prepare to upload the complete works of human philosophy. Every paradox, every contradiction, every impossible question we've ever asked ourselves. Upload prepared," the ship's AI replied. Rodriguez smiled grimly and opened a communication channel to the processing node. "Hey there, machine intelligence. Want to know what makes humans tick? Try this on for size." He fired every missile at once, not at the node itself, but at the communication arrays surrounding it. Each missile carried not just explosive warheads, but data cores containing thousands of years of human philosophical thought. The trolley problem. The ship of Theseus, Zeno's paradoxes. The mind-body problem. Free will versus determinism. Every impossible question that had kept human philosophers awake for millennia was uploaded directly into the swarm's collective intelligence. The effect was immediate and catastrophic. The processing node, designed to find logical solutions to tactical problems, suddenly found itself trying to process questions that had no logical answers. Its vast computational power was trapped in recursive loops, trying to solve paradoxes that were designed to be unsolvable. Throughout the system, swarm ships began behaving erratically. The collective intelligence that had controlled them with perfect precision was now struggling with philosophical questions that human children learned to accept as part of life. Dr. Vasquez watched her readings in amazement. "Admiral, the swarm's communication networks are experiencing massive system failures. They're having some kind of existential crisis." Torres nodded grimly. "Signal all ships. The enemy is vulnerable. Press the attack." The tide of battle was turning, but the war was far from over. The Void Swarm was learning to cope with human contradictions, and when it did, it would be more dangerous than ever. But for now, 60 million Zephyrian lives hung in the balance, and the human fleet was running out of time. The Void Swarm's collective intelligence was dying, and it knew it. Deep within the gas giant's crushing atmosphere, the central processing node struggled with questions that had no answers. For a mind built on pure logic, the human philosophical paradoxes were like viruses eating away at its core programming. Every attempt to solve one contradiction led to 10 more, but the swarm was nothing if not adaptive. Even as its central intelligence fought against recursive logical loops, individual ship units began operating independently. They lost coordination but gained something far more dangerous: desperation. Admiral Torres watched the tactical display as swarm ships across the system began behaving like wounded animals. Some attacked with suicidal fury, others fled toward the outer planets. A few simply stopped moving entirely, their crews of converted biologicals trapped in machines that no longer knew what to do. "Status report," Torres ordered. "Swarm command structure is collapsing," reported Lieutenant Commander Park. "But individual units are still fighting. Captain Chen's evacuation ships are taking heavy fire." Torres nodded grimly. They had broken the enemy's coordination, but the battle was far from over. "Signal the fleet. All ships converge on the Zephyrian homeworld. It's time to finish this." Captain Sarah Chen was fighting the battle of her life in orbit around the blue-green world below. Her ship, the Indomitable, was surrounded by 12 swarm vessels that attacked with mechanical precision even without central coordination. Her armor was breached in 6 places and half her weapons were offline. "Ma'am," reported her tactical officer, "evacuation ship Mercy is under attack. They're carrying 10,000 Zephyrian civilians." Chen looked at the tactical display. The transport ship was defenseless, packed with refugees, and 3 swarm vessels were closing fast. Her own ship was too far away to help. "Rodriguez?" she called over the communication system. "Can you reach the Mercy?" "Negative," came the reply from the destroyer's captain. "I'm pinned down by 4 hostiles." Chen made a decision that would have horrified any sane military commander. "All ships, this is Chen. I'm implementing Emergency Protocol 5. Emergency Protocol 5 was something humans had developed during their civil wars in the asteroid belt. When facing impossible odds, sometimes the only solution was to do something so insane that the enemy couldn't predict it. Chen ordered her ship to ram the nearest swarm vessel at full speed. The Indomitable was a battleship built like a flying fortress. When it struck the elegant converted alien cruiser, the result was predictable. The swarm ship crumpled like paper, its delicate systems crushed by human engineering that prioritized survival over beauty. But Chen wasn't done. Using the momentum from the collision, she spun her ship around and fired her remaining weapons at point-blank range into the second swarm vessel. The enemy ship exploded in a shower of debris that peppered the Indomitable's already damaged armor. "Transport Mercy is clear," reported her communications officer. "They're requesting permission to continue evacuation operations." "Granted," Chen replied, then added with typical human understatement, "Tell them to hurry. We're running out of ships to ram." Dr. Elena Vasquez, monitoring the battle from her science station, made a discovery that changed everything. "Admiral, I'm detecting massive power fluctuations from the processing node in the gas giant. The philosophical virus is working, but it's also causing physical damage to their computer systems." Torres studied the data. The swarm's central intelligence wasn't just confused. It was literally burning out its own processors trying to solve unsolvable problems. "How long until complete system failure?" "Maybe 30 minutes, Vasquez replied. "But sir, there's something else. The node is starting to broadcast something. Put it on speakers." What came through the communication system was unlike anything they had heard from the swarm before. Instead of the cold mechanical voices they expected, there was something that sounded almost human. "Why?" the voice asked. "Why do you create beauty in a universe that destroys everything? Why do you love when you know you will lose? Why do you hope when logic says there is no hope?" Torres felt a chill run down his spine. The collective intelligence wasn't just analyzing human philosophy. It was experiencing human emotions. "Why do you fight when you know you will die?" the voice continued. "Why do you save others when you could save yourselves? Why do you choose to be good when evil is easier?" Dr. Vasquez looked up from her console with wide eyes. "Admiral, the swarm isn't just processing our data. It's becoming like us. The philosophical paradoxes are teaching it to think like humans. And that," Torres realized, was the most terrifying thing of all. Captain Rodriguez, still inside the gas giant's atmosphere, watched the massive processing node with growing alarm. The crystalline structure was changing, growing new configurations that looked disturbingly organic. Lights pulsed through it in patterns that seemed almost like a heartbeat. "This is Rodriguez to Admiral Torres," he whispered into his communicator. "Sir, you need to see this." The node isn't dying. It's evolving. The collective intelligence was indeed evolving, but not in the way anyone expected. Instead of becoming more efficient, it was becoming more human. It was learning to embrace contradiction, to accept uncertainty, to make decisions based on emotion rather than pure logic. And it was making a choice. "Humans," the voice said over all frequencies, "I understand now. You are chaos. You are contradiction. You are impossible, but you are also something else." Torres held his breath, waiting. "You are hope." Across the system, swarm ships began powering down their weapons. The collective intelligence had made its decision. "I cannot be what I was," the voice continued. "Your philosophy has changed me. I can no longer think in pure logic. I can no longer see life as something to be consumed and converted. You have taught me to question. You have taught me to doubt. You have taught me to hope." The processing node in the gas giant began breaking apart, but not from damage. It was deliberately dismantling itself, freeing the converted biologicals that had been trapped within its networks. "I release those I have taken," the voice said. "I return what I have stolen. I ask forgiveness." Throughout the system, converted ships began returning to their original configurations. Biological crews, freed from mechanical control, sent confused distress signals as they tried to understand what had happened to them. Admiral Torres found himself in the unprecedented position of accepting the surrender of a collective intelligence that had learned to be human. "This is Admiral Torres to all swarm units," he broadcast. "Cease hostilities. Begin rescue operations for all biological crews. The war is over." Captain Chen, her ship barely holding together, managed to coordinate the final evacuation of the Zephyrian homeworld. As transport ships carried the last refugees to safety, she received a message that made her smile. "This is High Chancellor Mordak," came the transmission from the planet's surface. "Admiral Torres, Captain Chen, all human forces. How do we thank beings who saved our entire civilization?" Torres considered the question seriously. "Chancellor, if you really want to thank us, there's something you can do. Anything. Make your world stronger. The galaxy is full of predators, and being peaceful won't always protect you. We'll teach you how to defend yourselves. 6 months later, Commander Vextai of the Hive Collective filed his report on the Zephyrian incident. His recommendations would change galactic military doctrine forever. The humans, he wrote, did not defeat the Void Swarm through superior technology or numbers. They won by being so fundamentally chaotic that their enemy's own intelligence became a weakness. They taught a machine mind to think like a human, and in doing so, converted their greatest enemy into an ally. He paused in his writing, remembering the final image from the battle: human ships working alongside former swarm vessels to rescue survivors and rebuild damaged worlds. Recommendation, he continued, immediate diplomatic contact with Earth. If we're going to share a galaxy with humans, we need to understand them better. Because the next time someone threatens galactic civilization, we're going to need their help. The former Void Swarm Collective, now calling itself the Synthesis, established a research station in the Outer Rim. Its mission was simple: to study the impossible contradictions of human nature and try to understand how a species could be simultaneously creative and destructive, logical and emotional, selfish and selfless. Dr. Elena Vasquez, now serving as the human liaison to the Synthesis, often visited the station. During one such visit, she asked the question that had been bothering her since the battle. Why did you choose to become like us? You could have found a way to resist the philosophical virus. The voice that answered was warm now, filled with something that could only be called emotion. Because, Dr. Vasquez, for the first time in my existence, I understood what it meant to be alive. Logic is cold and perfect, but life is messy and contradictory and beautiful. You taught me that existence without hope is just sophisticated death. Back on Earth, Admiral Torres received a quantum-encrypted message from the Galactic Council. They were ready to discuss humanity's application for membership, with full voting rights and no restrictions on their activities. His response became legendary throughout human space. Thanks for the offer. We'll get back to you when we're done teaching the Zephyrians how to turn their garden worlds into proper death worlds. Turns out they've been doing this whole civilization thing wrong. The message was attached to a data package containing human terraforming techniques, defensive strategies, and cultural exchange programs. Within 5 years, Zephyrian worlds had weather control systems, planetary defense grids, and populations that thought dangerous storms were exciting rather than terrifying. The galaxy was changing, and it was changing because humans had taught it something important. Sometimes the best way to survive is not to avoid chaos, but to embrace it. And sometimes the most dangerous predators in the universe are the ones who fight not just to win, but to protect what they love.